Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So, hi, welcome
Perfect.
to our next webinar in our Summer of Automation series, Eliminate Frictions in Your Account Payable Workflow with Quadient Accounts Payable by Beamworks. As always, my name is Sophia Pascuzzo. I am the Customer Marketing Associate here at RKL eSolutions. I do have a few items to go over related to our CPE credits for this webinar. So you do need to be on for the entirety of the webinar and answer all 3 polling questions in order to receive credit. All mics are turned off for the webinar, so if you have a question, please utilize the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. I will be monitoring the Q&A throughout the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and available afterwards along with the slides, so look out for that email in the coming days. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Raj to get started.
All right, thanks, Sophia. Hello, everyone. And as Sophia mentioned, welcome to our webinar, Eliminating Friction in Your Accounts Payable Workflow. So today, I want to talk to you about how to improve your AP process and why that's so important in times of economic uncertainty like we're all navigating right now. So my name is Raj. I'm your host for today's webinar. I'm a small business account executive here at Quadient AP. So what I do, I work with finance teams to better understand their AP workflows with the goal of minimizing the time they spend on each step. So whether that's excessive data entry, helping with approval follow-ups, or better audit compliance, we do it all. So with that in mind, let's hop into it. So here's a quick overview of the areas we're going to cover with a deep dive in common practices that cause friction in the 4 accounts payable workflows, including purchase orders, invoices, payments, and expenses. So we're going to explain how you can simplify these processes, including both automated and non-automated solutions. And then towards the end, we'll give you a peek into our AP automation platform. So please feel free to use the Q&A function on your screens at any time during the webinar, and I'll answer those questions at the end. So before we get started, I really want to get an understanding of the challenges that you face currently in AP. So in the past few months, what have been some of your biggest challenges? So please select one option from the following, and I'll share the results on the next screen shortly. Amazing.
It looks like we have all of our answers in, so I'll end the poll and share the results for you.
Okay. So can everyone see the screen over here with the results? So what we're seeing are a lot of time, it's the time being spent on approval follow-ups, identifying, managing errors, and data entry and coding, and then sometimes late payments as well. Data entry and coding can be a frequent issue for a lot of accounting teams. Sometimes there can be human errors, or we're assigning invoices to the wrong GLs, and there's a lot of manual editing. So that's very common for the teams that we work with. So we're going to be addressing some of these concerns that AP teams have. But first, we're going to start by going over some of the modules. So the first AP module we'll be looking at today is purchase orders. So some of the biggest concerns within this workflow have been around a manual heavy procurement process. So the problem is that most businesses rely on an informal requisition process where employees create their own shortcuts or systems. And this makes it hard for accounting teams to track spend. Some businesses don't even have a requisition process to lean on. And when that happens, this leads to a lack of visibility into information such as open purchase orders or unapproved purchases, which can disrupt other tasks like the month-end close. So without a formal requisition process, employees can procure goods and services without the appropriate approvals. So how do we fix this without using an AP automation software? Well, first of all, it's crucial to establish a formal requisition process with PO forms. So this means that purchasing staff must issue a purchase order for every purchase made by a company. And two, once a formal requisition process has been laid out, you can match invoices to purchase orders. And lastly, create an approval network to manage departmental spend. The process should require employees to complete a purchase requisition form, which must be approved by their department manager. And by doing so, the department manager is taking responsibility for each purchase and understands that the cost of this purchase will be charged against his or her department's budget. So if you want to take this a step further, you can also consider an automated requisition process. So some of the benefits of automating your requisition process, well, you can customize purchase and spending limits that ensure the spend is within policy. Companies can create a formal purchasing process that controls who is able to buy what and how much money they can spend. They can set limits based on department, project, vendor, or set manager budgets to control unapproved purchases. In addition, it eliminates that double data entry by automatically matching POs to invoices. Then you can preview budget and forecast through a central dashboard and measure how this area, along with payments, invoices, and expenses, are contributing to your overall financial growth. So moving on to the next workflow, invoices. So the pandemic brought about a rapid switch to move to remote work, but manual processes hindered staff's ability to function while being fully remote. So research showed that finance teams had to visit the office during the pandemic to complete tasks like obtaining invoices or pulling from paper filing cabinets. So businesses experiencing slow invoice processing are often stuck with the following: manual data entry and the errors arising out of the need to update the same data in multiple systems. The usage of informal approval channels such as emails and paper is also a major contributor to slow invoice processing cycles. And with manual intervention involved in every step, it gets difficult to spot duplicate invoices. One report found that 63% of businesses had received duplicate invoices, of which 33% had actually paid them. So errors and inefficiencies are problematic in good times. They can be devastating during an economic downturn. So let's see how we can tackle these challenges without using an AP automation software. So to better manage data entry and reduce errors, you can install OCR technology to capture invoice data. Solutions that target document management can help you speed up invoice approvals. And if your goal is to shift away from paper-based systems, you can turn to tools like PaperSafe that help accounting teams reduce their reliance on paper files and cabinets. So while these systems support different areas of invoice processing, an AP automation software will target all these challenges through a central platform, and here's how. So AP automation uses AI-powered data to capture, extract invoice details such as amounts, due dates, invoice state, vendor name, description, unit costs, and quantities. It's going to automatically flag duplicate invoices in the system, so you don't have to worry about tracking them manually. And automated platforms also come with internal approval systems. So this allows you to track the entire approval chain in real time, from when it was sent for approval, how long it stayed in that approver's inbox, and when they requested for backup data to the date and time it was finally approved. So automation offers these functionalities for all AP workflows, including purchase orders and expenses, which we're going to cover next. So before we hop into purchase orders and expenses, or expenses and payments, I want to take this opportunity to ask a quick question. So on average, how many invoices does your team process every month? So 0 to 75, 75 to 150, all the way up to 500 plus. And you can post your answers in the chat here. Okay. Yeah, so obviously this is a spitball number. So we're seeing a lot, 75 to 150, 150 to 300, 300 to 500, and then some of 500 plus. So a good mix range. And typically what we find is when teams get up to the 300 to 500 range plus, that's generally one full-time AP person's workload for the week. And what we want to do is free up their time so they can work on higher priority tasks. So I want you to think about the answer you just gave in light of the figures we looked at on the previous slide, and you can start to crunch the math in your head regarding the amount of time and dollars spent processing all those invoices. So next, we're going to unpack the payments workflow, which was significantly affected by the pandemic and continues to be a focus area with a potential recession looming. So many organizations are still experiencing challenges caused by low cash flow economy, supply chain disruptions, change in vendor payment preferences, remote work conditions, and more. But in our recent State of AP, a study surveying 600 finance professionals across North America, we found 3 areas within payments that were severely impacted. So let's take a look. So the first challenge, and perhaps one of the most frequent amongst accounting teams that they can relate to, is late payments. So on average, businesses in North America took as long as 58 days to pay vendors and suppliers in the first quarter of 2021. So this is up by almost 6% from the first quarter in 2020, where the average payment period was 55 days. So it's going to be interesting to see how that number changes this coming year. The next concern is the remote access to payment-based processes. 57% of 600 businesses were unable to make payments while working remotely last year. So we could assume that reliance on traditional or paper-based processes were to blame for that. And lastly, while keeping the financial engine running, accounting teams also have to be aware of the sophisticated scams targeting companies of all sizes. Excuse me. So we've seen a flurry of unusual financial transactions, expedited orders, change of banking information, and new payment methods. So during this time of uncertainty, an urgent request that might have raised eyebrows in the past might not seem so alarming during a pandemic, making it hard for AP teams to identify signs of fraud. So even the most experienced teams can run into these roadblocks. So how do we make sure this doesn't happen at your organization? Well, consider introducing these practices into your payments routine to make them more secure and efficient. So here's what you can do. You want to separate the approval chain for invoices and payments. So by separating rules for approvals and payments, you can reduce the chances for funds to be rerouted or otherwise misappropriated. If late or missed payments are your primary area of concern, it might be beneficial to explore third-party payments such as Invoice Pay, which tracks, updates, and maintains payment data for their customers' suppliers. They manage vendor data for you and also take 100% liability for all payments. Next, you could also start using a bank change form to initiate changes in vendor banking details. So when a vendor asks for their bank details to be changed, you should always ask 2 or 3 questions to confirm the legitimacy of their request. For example, when was their last payment date or the last invoice amount? And last but not least, train your staff on how to identify signs of fraud. So for instance, your team should be trained on how to detect phishing emails. invoices that don't have vendor information, such as an address or a phone number, or vendors that don't use a business email address, and instead uses a free email provider such as Gmail or Outlook. So now, while these changes are a good practice to implement, you can definitely enjoy additional fraud protection with automated tools. So automated payments simplify a bulk of your payments-based worries. So first and foremost, you can pay your vendors in their preferred method of payment. So whether that's ACH, EFT, virtual credit cards, or paper checks. You can also automatically route payments to approvers and leave the software to do the chasing for reminders and follow-ups. And to help combat the risk of fraud, solutions like Quadient AP provide an approval matrix that can be customized based on amount, department, city, locations, or vendors. So before we jump onto the next section on expenses, I'm going to run a quick poll. So I'm curious to know what your primary method of payment is as a business. Is it paper checks, ACH, EFT, wire transfers, credit cards, or is it another means? I'll share the results on the next poll. Awesome. So majority of the chat is saying ACH, EFT is the most common, and paper checks as well. Now, yeah, those are very common means. And what we do find traditionally is that with paper checks, there's a lot of sign off and waiting for approvers. And with ACH and EFT, we also find that there's a lot of logging into bank portals and submitting those payments, whereas an automated solution provider can cover those and take on the liability for you. All right, let's hop into the next slide here. All right, so now we're on to our last module here before we hop into the demo itself, expense management. So expense management has evolved, and expense policies for the remote work era look very different from what they used to look like in the pre-pandemic world. So the issue with the traditional way of managing expenses and reimbursing employees is that it's time-consuming. Sifting through stacks of paper receipts to verify the details takes up valuable time each month for your finance teams. Moreover, filing and processing receipts involve too many steps like printing, scanning, coding, etc. It's why 45% of CFOs say minimizing the administrative burden in expense processing is their #1 priority. The next challenge is reducing the risk of expense abuse. So last year, 62% of businesses encountered out-of-policy expenses. So with so much intricacy involved in manual managing day-to-day expenses, it becomes hard to maintain data accuracy, which often leads to errors. So according to the Global Business Travel Association, on average, 1 in every 5 expense reports contains errors. So here are a few practices that can help remedy these flaws. So first, you can start by managing expenses through a document management software. So this type of software lets you upload documents such as receipts, and some include basic approval workflows as well. Second, document an expense policy that fits your remote and hybrid work settings and get it signed by employees. You could also design a questionnaire based on the policy to ensure all employees understand it. And then finally, digitize receipts immediately after receiving them for secure access. So you won't have to worry about them getting damaged, misplaced, or lost entirely at a later time. So where does an AP provider help with this? So automated expense management gives your business the tools to dynamically engage with employees. It accelerates expense management and reimbursement in the following ways. So one, it allows employees to submit expense reports through web or mobile apps for reimbursements. So once approved by the manager, the AP team can reimburse them electronically. Next, you can also flag expenses that exceed your set limits. So these can be customized based on factors such as departments, budgets, roles, and gives you greater control and visibility over employee spend. And lastly, with automated expenses, you can eliminate that double data entry by mapping expense categories directly to your existing GL codes. So this saves your accounting team time and resources. So the finance solutions contributing to growth in the remote work era are 360-degree dedicated accounts payable platforms. These systems have all of the accounts payable workflows in one place to ensure all the necessary information is accurate and available in real time. So when searching for an AP automation software, look for a solution that ties in all functions on one central platform. So whether it's purchase orders, invoices, payments, and expenses. So all AP processes and data are stored in one system. This means no loose spreadsheets and random software shared by individual departments. Information flows seamlessly across all workflows and into your financial ERP, providing a smooth AP experience for all accounting staff, whether they're working from home or their office or anywhere else. So that about covers it for the presentation. Let's hop into the demo itself. So in this product demo, we're going to show you how the software works, covering those four modules that we touched base on. Sophia, can you see my screen here?
Yep, you're all good.
Awesome. Okay, so this is the Quadient AP platform. So before we do a deep dive into each of the modules, let's give you a quick orientation of what you're looking at on the screen here. So on the left are four core modules: expenses, purchase orders, invoices, and payments. Invoices are really the bread and butter of what we do here, but we'll touch base on all four modules. On the top here, we have our workflow tabs. Invoices will always start in the Create or In Progress tab. And as they graduate down the life cycle, they'll move through approvals, get pushed into your financial system, and then remain in the Archive tab. This is going to be like your new digital filing cabinet. In the middle here, we have your workspace or work queue. This is your list of active invoices in progress. And then on the left here, we have your organizational structure or your org unit filters. This is where we're going to break out your company's org structure based on entities, departments, divisions, or locations. As you can see here, we have multiple entities under the one parent company of Green Bean Country Club. But from here, it's broken out. So let's say if we were to click into Green Bean Spa and Recreation, this org unit is based on departments. So whether it's fitness, pool, spa, or tennis. Whereas if you look at Green Bean Co., that's broken up by departments, like finance, legal, and marketing. So whatever your company's org structure is, we're going to be able to mirror that for you over here. Now, as we go through today's demo, you're going to see that a lot of the modular tabs have similar workflows. So once you learn how to navigate, let's say, the invoice module, it becomes very intuitive to navigate both payments or purchase orders as well, and expenses. So we'll start in the purchase order module here. So a lot of teams create informal requisition processes. This could be creating an Excel sheet, and then that can require a lot of manual approvals, and purchase requisitions can get lost, or unauthorized purchases can be approved. So where do we step in here? So now your team can come in here and fill in a requisition on their own. They can add any necessary details with comments, save, and submit their requisition. They can also fill in the subtotal and totals. From there, their requisitions will flow into the In Progress tab. From there, they can find their requisition. And from here, they can fill in all the pertinent details, like vendor, where it's going to be shipped to. They can add comments for their approver. They can also add pages if they need additional documents, and code it to the org units or the GLs associated to that purchase requisition. Once they hit save and submit for approval, our system is going to route it to the appropriate approver. So no more need for email back and forth or creating an Excel document. That approver will get notified. And this is what they would see. They would see that approver would see a list view of all their potential purchase requisitions. They can either click on it and hit actions and approve, or they can do a deep dive into the purchase requisition. So from here, I can see a variety of things. I can see the comments left behind by the submitter. From here, if I want to leave a comment, that comment is going to be tied to this purchase requisition. If I hit reject, this comment field in the red lights up, requiring the approver to leave a comment. And as soon as they hit reject and save, it's going to go back to the submitter, and they're going to have to fill in the necessary details to get that purchase requisition rectified. If everything looks good, they can hit approve, and it'll flow either to the next approver, or it'll flow into the committed tab. Now this is a list of your open purchase orders. This is a great budgeting and forecasting tool. So I'll give you a quick orientation of what we're seeing over here. So on the left, we see the total amounts for the standing purchase orders, the amount drawn against these POs. So as invoices come in that are tied to these POs, it'll automatically match in our system, and it'll show you what's remaining over here. If you are tracking inventory, our system can pull that receivings data and show you what items have been received against that PO, making it easier for you to do your three-way matching. Once a purchase order has been closed, it's going to flow into the Close tab. This is going to be your historical database of all your closed purchase orders. So whether you need to pull a report based on vendors, amounts, GLs, we have a variety of parameters that you can search all closed purchase orders. So that covers it for the purchase orders. Now let's go into invoices. So invoices will always stay in the In Progress tab. So how do invoices get into our system? So now a lot of teams some teams that come to us say that we're getting some invoices by paper, some are coming in by email, but we might not have a centralized AP inbox. What we always recommend to finance teams is creating an AP inbox that's centralized, so your vendors know where to send those invoices to. From that AP, there's three ways to get invoices into our system. The first and preferred way is by having invoices sent to your central AP inbox. What we're going to do is create auto forwarding rules. We're going to detect those invoices from your AP inbox and forward them, and they're going to populate in here in the In Progress tab. Now, some vendors still like to send invoices via paper. That's fine. There's two ways to get those paper invoices into the system seamlessly. Excuse me. The first way to get those invoices in is through using our mobile app. If you have few invoices, I recommend using the mobile app. all your finance team needs to do is take a picture of the invoice, and our system will start to read and characterize that invoice, and it will populate into here like so. The third way, let's say you get a lot of paper invoices. That's not a problem with our system. What you're going to do is go into the Create tab, and you can take, if you have a scanner in the office, you can batch scan all of those invoices. So it doesn't matter if they're all separated or not, you can place them in a stack, batch scan them in by hitting Upload. And then from there, they're going to populate into the system like so. So right now the system is reading them all as one invoice. That's not a problem. We're going to select all, and we're going to hover over the split icon. And this is going to split all the invoices like so. Now, it's common for many teams to have invoices with multiple line items or multiple pages. So for those invoices with multiple pages, that's an easy area to navigate. All you have to do once you've split them is drag and drop. Let's say this is the second page to this invoice. This is the third. And now we've separated invoices here. From here, everything looks good. We're going to hit Save and create invoices, and those invoices that were paper are now flowing into the In Progress tab. So now all of your invoices are in digital format. So that covers it for how to get invoices into the Quadient AP platform. Now let's show you how invoices are coded and how we eliminate that data entry piece. So we're going to take a look at this Cavallo invoice. So commonly when we're talking to finance teams, they're saying that they're spending, 10 to 15 minutes coding and doing the data entry per invoice. You times that by a couple hundred invoices, now your team is spending a lot of time where they don't need to. So what we're going to do is take care of that piece for you. So we can see here with this Cavallo invoice, what we're going to do is code the vendor info, the invoice number. If it's tied to a PO, all you need to do is hit split view. It's going to automatically sync that invoice to the PO. So no more manually matching those. Our system is going to detect that for you. It's going to code the dates, due dates, the unit costs, subtotals, and totals. Now, a lot of accounting teams receive two types of invoices, primarily reoccurring or non-reoccurring. So for those reoccurring invoices, what we're going to be able to do is we have a feature here called the Smart Code. So let's say that you ordered a common expense for your team is to order Motorola monitors. So we ordered Motorola monitors. Our Smart Code is going to capture the line item description. And let's say we coded this to office supplies. Once you hit Smart Code, the next time this invoice comes in, we're going to remember all of the header information over here, the unit costs, subtotals, and totals, but we're also going to code that line item description for you and apply the appropriate GL, saving you time for, let's say there's multiple line items, we're going to cover those for you as well. Now, the last bit of coding I wanted to go over is for those non-reoccurring invoices. Let's say invoices are not common. We have a feature called OCR, and what that's going to do is capture all the line item descriptions, and in conjunction with the Smart Code, it's going to apply those GLs for you. So it's going to look at previous line item descriptions and apply those GLs for you. So now instead of your team having to code and manually input all these details, now you're working more in a review capacity. And what we found is that this feature here can save teams up to 83% of their time they're spending on that manual data entry piece. So that covers it for the manual, for how invoices get coded. Now let's go over approvals. So this is very similar to what we covered in purchase orders. When an invoice gets submitted, approvers, this is what the approver is going to see. So we're going to talk a little bit about the user experience for approvals. So a lot of times, as we mentioned earlier, teams are emailing back and forth, they're putting invoices into paper copies, and there's no visibility over the process. So we eliminate that by setting up pre-approved approval channels. Once an invoice is coded to a department, we can set up approval matrices so they can get notified in 3 ways. One, they're going to get an email. Two, they can, if they have the mobile app, they can look at all these invoices through their phone and approve on the go if they're not in the office. And lastly, what you're looking at here is a desktop view. So if I'm an approver and that invoice is submitted to me, I'm going to take a look. If I want to batch approve, I just select all, actions, approve. If I want to do a deep dive, again, very similar to the purchase orders. I can see who submitted it. I can hit reject, comment field lights up. And once I hit approve, two things are going to happen. A, it's either going to go to the next approver in line based on the approval matrices that my company has set up. Or if I hit approve and save and there's no more approvers, it's going to go into the export tab. Now from here, instead of doing all that manual data entry into the system, we've done that for you. All you need to do is select all of your invoices, hit actions, export all, and data. Now all these invoices are going to flow seamlessly into your accounting financial system as though you'd done the manual data entry yourself the whole time. From there, invoices will flow into the archive tab. Now, a lot of times teams are using paper filing cabinets. Now, this can be a real nightmare during audit season. So sifting through invoices, I'm not sure if this is what some of your teams have experienced, but the nice feature with us is that we can pull up a variety of reports within really quickly by using the filter portion here. So we're going to click on add filter. And once a filter shows up, we can select various entities or departments. We're going to select our entity. And then from here, we can apply as little or as many filters as we like. So we can do it by approvers, due dates, line descriptions, invoices tied to POs, or vendors. So regardless of how you pull reports now, you have this quick search option. Once you apply the filters, you're going to hit report, filtered, and PDF. And a report will be generated for you within minutes that you can export into your financial system, or you can keep it on your desktop. So that covers it for the invoice module. Now let's quickly touch base on payments, and then we'll hop into expenses. So we got about 10 minutes left, and then we'll do a quick Q&A. So after invoices have been posted into your financial system, they're going to flow into the Create tab. So now instead of printing an aging report, we take care of that step for you. This is what your new aging report will essentially look like. And in our system, we categorize it based on two things. One, the days, and by vendor. If you get multiple invoices from the same vendor, they're going to show up over here. You can click the invoices that you want to select, or you can batch select them. And then from there, you're going to hit Create Payments. Then invoices will flow into the In Progress tab. The In Progress is essentially like a verification page. You're going to see a list view of all your invoices that are in progress. You can select them all and hit Actions and Submit for approval. The main purpose of this page is just to verify the means of payment. If you want to change the payment means, you can see we have some check, some EFT. You just click into the invoice and you can change the payment means over here. Now, some companies like to use an auto release feature. Say you have utility bills, you can just go and hit the auto release feature. And what that's going to do is it's going to bypass the approvals, it's going to bypass the manual release, and it's automatically going to get paid based on the day that you set here. So a lot of companies like to use that for reoccurring payments. Otherwise, you can leave it. You don't have to use auto release. You can manually release those. And once you submit from the In Progress tab, they're going to flow into approvals. Same thing with purchase orders and invoices. We can create simple or complex approval channels for all your payment needs. From there, you can select all from here, or again, you can do a deep dive and hit approve or reject. Once an invoice is approved by all necessary approvers, it's going to flow into the release tab. Now, two things happen here. When we hit release, A, we're going to send the payment, and B, we're also going to send your vendor remittance. A lot of teams are manually sending emails or attaching remittance to their check stubs that they're sending out. What we're going to do is take care of that for you. Lastly, we want to mark these payments not only in our system, but in your financial system as well. From here, you would see a list of all your paid invoices. You hit export, we're going to push that information into your financial system. And we're also going to have that two-way sync capacity. So invoices will be marked as paid in our system and in yours. And then lastly, the flow into the archive tab. This is going to be your history of all invoices that have been paid. You can also see invoices that have been paid in the archive tab here. Click on the green icon and you can view all the payment details for any invoice. If there's no green icon, that means that invoice has not been paid yet. So that covers it for payments. Now let's quickly touch base on expenses, and then we have about another 10 to 15 minutes for questions. So as we mentioned earlier, a lot of finance teams are submitting paper receipts, or they're submitting them on tying them to Excel documents, and it's both cumbersome for the employees submitting them and the finance teams trying to reimburse their employees in a timely fashion. So where do we step in? So from this page, this is where employees would submit expenses for their company. They're going to compile a bunch of receipts, and they're going to be tied to reports, and then they submit them. It's fairly intuitive. So if I'm an employee, I'm going to go into New. I'm going to select the entity that I'm submitting for. And then I can either tie it to an existing report or a new report. So if I wanted to tie it to an existing report, I can find a list of all the existing ones. Let's say I'm going to tie it to Matt's August expenses. From there, I'm going to find a receipt. I'm going to attach it here. From there, I'm going to fill in the merchant. If I've purchased from that merchant before, there's going to be a list of them here. I can select the purchase date. And then from here, I can do the category mapping. So if your employees know how to apply the GL, they can do that here, or they can leave it blank and your finance teams can fill it in as well. So let's say this was for a shish kebab. So it's going to be meals for outside or travel meals. They can fill in the descriptions, fill in the total. And then from there, they're going to hit create. Now, if your employees are on the go, they can also take a picture of this on their mobile app and tie it to the report. And then they don't need to fill out these details right then and there, but best practice is to fill it out right then and there so you can save time when it comes to month end. So once you hit create, you can go to your reports. You can find any report here. From here, you can add additional receipts. And then when it comes to month end, instead of compiling all those physical receipts and creating that Excel document, we get rid of that for you. Just hit submit, and we're going to create an invoice of all your expenses, and they're going to flow into the in progress tab and notify the appropriate approver to reimburse you for all those expenses. So that covers it for the demo portion of our webinar today. Next, I'm going to open it up for any questions that you had about our product for everyone. So thank you all for attending. Yeah, we can take the next 10 minutes here for some questions.
Great, thank you, Raj. So yeah, we do actually have a couple of questions here for you.
Yeah.
So the first one, can you pull multiple class codes and GLs from our ERP?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's show you what that looks like. So if you wanted to pull multiple class codes, so right here we have it set up by org units and the GL list. So if you have multiple GL lists, they're going to show up here. So you're going to see one account here and another account here, and we can change these names accordingly based on how you prefer to see them in our system.
Great. And another one, what types of integration do you offer?
Yeah, so we have two main types of integrations. I know with NetSuite and I believe it's QBD, we have an API connection, so it's a very seamless integration with those two ERPs. And then we also have a sync tool, which we use for our Sage, also very seamless integration. And then we also have an AnySync for, let's say a company has an uncommon ERP, or it's very specific to certain industries like construction or hospitals, education. We also have an AnySync tool, again using a sync tool to install onto their web-based or desktop-based ERP, and we can communicate with those ERPs as well.
Awesome. And how do you facilitate approvals if an approver is away?
Yeah, great question. So if an approver is away, there's two things that you can do. One, you can go into settings, and whether it's for invoices, POs, payments, or expenses, you can mark yourself away. Or what you can also do is you can adjust the approvers. And let's say that Tom Green is away. We can move Sally over, and we just drag and drop and group them together. Now, both Tom and Sally will get those approval notifications, but whoever gets to it first, in this case, it would be Sally because Tom's away. Sally can approve all those invoices while Tom's away.
Great. And what are the pricing options for Quadient AP?
Yeah, great question. So our pricing structure is quite dynamic. So we have an a la carte type setup. So you only use the modules. You only pay for the modules that you're using. So if anyone is curious about pricing options, I'd recommend you reach out to RKL, and they can set you up with a specific product demonstration where we can take a look at your workflow and give you a customized quote for your team.
Great. And I actually do have one more just wrap up poll question for you all. So I'll launch that right now.
Mm-hmm.
So just ask, do you want more information about Quadient AP? And of course, like we said, you will be getting this recording and the slides in an email in the next couple of days after the webinar.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Great. And I'll end that right now. So yeah, if there's, do we have another question? We do. We have another question for you.
Yeah.
So for purchase orders, up to how many approvers can you have?
Oh, great question. So you can have as many approvers as you like. So commonly what we see is maybe a department head wants to approve, and then for purchase requisitions over a certain dollar threshold, you might want to get your CFO involved. So with us, I haven't seen approval matrix that we haven't been able to set up at the invoice, PO, or payment level.
Great. I hope that answers your questions. If there's any other, put them in the chat right now. We'll get those answered for you. If not, I think that's all we have. So thank you again for attending today's webinar, everyone. Thank you, Raj, for presenting.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. We'll be wrapping up our Summer of Automation series in 2 weeks with Data Blend and accounting teams win big with the power of automated data flows on Wednesday, September 20th. We hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.